Alright, good day class. It's another beautiful class. And today I decided to do this video outdoor because I want to explain some of the things I've not explained before. So today I'll be explaining aperture. And aperture is the depth of it. When we talk about aperture is the depth of it. Aperture is actually talking about your lens. The lens is your aperture. The lens is the height of the camera, and the lens is actually the aperture. So when we talk about aperture now, aperture is what makes your background blur and what makes your background sharp. You want to take a picture and you want to have a blurry background. It is from your aperture settings. Don't forget the three major settings under exposure triangles are shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. Do you understand that? Now, when we talk about shutter speed, I've explained to you that shutter speed is what determines the speed of your shutter. And when we talk about aperture now, aperture is what determines you want your background to be blurry, your background to be sharp. Same thing, you have portrait on your phone and okay, the camera settings of your phone. That makes your background blur, right? Those things are actually extracted from aperture settings. You understand? So aperture is what determines if your background will be blur or if your background will be sharp. Let's say you want to take a street pictures, yes, and there's a lot of crowd. You understand? I want to take a particular person. You want just one person to be sharp. That person is your main subject. So what you need to do is just to blur the background. That is the beauty of aperture. You blur the background, you blur the crowd, and your main subject will become very sharp. Now, how do you set your camera in a situation whereby the background will be sharp or the background will be blur? When you open up your aperture, your background will be blur. Opening up your aperture means that you are reducing your aperture. You are reducing the settings. The sign for aperture is F something, F3, F2, F1.2, F2.3, you understand, F2.8, F4, F10, F22. That is the settings for your aperture. You understand that? Now, when you open up your aperture, it means that you are reducing it. That means that there's more lightness coming inside. And as more lightness is coming inside, the background, you have depth of field, background will blur. I'm trying to make this video as fast as possible. The background will be what? Will be blur, which means that you have blurry background and lighter picture, because the more you reduce your aperture, the lighter your picture becomes. You understand? And the higher you increase your aperture, that means you are closing up the aperture. You understand? The higher you increase your aperture, the darker your picture will become. And that means that your picture's background are becoming sharp. You understand? So I'll be using Sharon here as my model, and I want you guys to just follow me. Okay, so my aperture right now is in 3.8. I'm shooting at 3.8 at ISO 100. Then I'm shooting at shutter speed 100. Let me stop my settings so you guys can see. Okay, so let's shoot this at f3.8. That's aperture at the moment, and let's see what we have. Okay, you can just do anything you like. Okay, we can see the picture we have. The picture is slight, it's overexposed. But now let me just adjust my settings. Let me go from f3.8 to, let's say, f10. Okay, now you can see that the pictures are dark. So as I explained to you guys earlier, that the more you increase your aperture, the darker the picture becomes, and the lower you open up the aperture, the lighter the picture becomes. So I want to shoot at f22 at the moment. F22. Let's see what we have, and let's see what the background is giving us. It's mine now. Okay, you can see the picture is extremely dark. You understand? That is why we need to come in with our ISO. But before I come in with our ISO, I want to expose it normally, then I want to take another shot with a lighter picture. So I want you guys to see how you can blur the background. So to do that, you just have to, bring down the aperture. I mean, open up the aperture. Okay, we are now at f5. Then you can increase the shutter speed just slightly at, let's say, shutter speed 200, 1 over 200. Now let's take another picture. Okay, now we have a better picture, and we can see that the background is very blue right now. You understand that? So the higher you increase the aperture, the darker it becomes. Now, I'm shooting at f22 now. Don't forget the picture will be dark. F22 shutter speed 1 over 100, then ISO. And let's take our ISO to 800. Now let's see what we have. Okay, look at what we have now. Now look at the background. You can see that the background is also sharp compared to the one with f3.8. Let's take one more picture at f32. Same ISO 800. Okay, yeah, our pictures are dark. So do you understand this part now? Our pictures are dark. So if you want a blurry background, you open up the aperture, and if you want a sharp background, you close up the aperture. You understand that? And so that is how our ISO actually comes in, so that we can have a brighter picture. Now after you shoot with Sharon, you can see that I was increasing my ISO just to balance the settings. That is what exposure triangle is talking about. For you to get a balanced exposure triangle, you must learn how to balance your settings, your shutter speed, aperture, and your ISO. You understand that? So you have to know how to set the three together. You understand? Now, ISO is very simple to understand. ISO is just what gives your camera more lightness, light intensity. Don't forget that everything is actually talking about lightness, exposure. But unlike shutter speed, whereby it gives your picture speed, shutter speed. You understand? Unlike what is it called? Aperture too. Aperture give your picture depth of field, blurry background. But ISO is not actually giving your picture anything than lightness. But I will explain. Too much of lightness is actually bad as well. When you have too much of lightness, too much of ISO, I mean, you will have noise. Too much of ISO, you will have noise. But this is outdoor. You can see the picture we took with Sharon. When the aperture was high, the picture was dark. I had to balance it up with my ISO. You understand? So what you must learn how to set it. You must learn how to balance your exposure triangle. You know how a normal triangle looks like, right? When you place something on that pointed part, let's say you place a plank on that pointed part and you put a load here, you put another load here that is much than the ones you put at the left side. What do you think will happen? To be stringing. Do you understand? So you have to be able to set your exposure triangle in a way that the two parts will be balanced. The two parts it should be balanced. Do you understand that? So that is what ISO is talking about. ISO gives your picture more lightness. More lightness. So if you are shooting in a dark place and the lightness is not good enough, even when you have reduced your aperture, you have reduced your shutter speed, and you are shooting in a dark place, you can just increase your ISO. But don't forget that too much of ISO is bad because it will give your picture noise. You understand? So aperture just adds lightness to your picture. Unlike shutter speed and aperture, that when you increase them, your pictures will be dark, right? It is not the same thing as ISO. ISO, when you increase ISO, the picture will become lighter. The two are a bit different. When you reduce your shutter speed and aperture, your picture will become lighter. But in ISO, when you reduce it, your picture will become darker. You understand? Depending on where you are shooting from, either you are shooting indoor or outdoor. So you need to understand that. That will be the end of today's class. I hope you guys understand. So if you have any question and you want me to share more light on it, you can just send me a DM. You have a lovely night rest.